Lillian and Mary. A 5-year-old hand holds a 65-year-old hand a lifetime ago, stands at the open mouth of the mammoth grand salon of the soon-to-sail ocean liner she was steaming away on in a cloud of confetti, maybe to England or France. The itinerary no longer remains or matters, just that moment when I stood at the edge of another age with two proud old ladies. My grandmother Lillian, with her calico cat-soft voice and mink stole, and the Queen Mary, with her stout red lipstick stacks, preparing to cross the Atlantic together, and a little camel-capped and coated boy floating there, with his mother somewhere behind the scene, for a bon voyage. Good evening, friends and newcomers, far and wide. Welcome back to another floating poetry broadcast, the fifth in this weekly series, coming to you live by the sea, the wandering sea, by oil lamplight from Weekapaug, Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist, Colin Goedecke. Tonight, going journeying together with each and all of you across the world while we remain close to home. I thought we might start with a quote by Diane Ackerman after the opening poem, which was written in honor of my grandmother, and a wonderful memory that maybe began my desire to voyage, innerly and outerly. Diane Ackerman wrote, and some of you may know this quote, "The great affair, the love affair with life, is to live as variously as possible, to groom one's curiosity. Like a high-spirited thoroughbred, climb aboard and gallop over the thick, sun-struck hills every day. Where there is no risk, the emotional terrain is flat and unyielding, and despite all its dimensions, valleys, pinnacles, and detours, life will seem to have none of its magnificent geography, only a length. It began in mystery, and it will end in mystery. But what a savage and beautiful country lies in between." Diane Ackerman. So let's go voyaging. Let's begin all the way up in Alaska, and we have some lovely friends in Alaska and many memories of mine, very big memories. But to all those in Alaska and all of those who maybe have dreamt of it, been there, or would like to go there, this is a poem from the Frederick Sound, Southeast Alaska, July of 2009. The Inside Passage. The upholstery is vast and varied. Overstuffed divans wildly embroidered with orchids and scented with cedar, chaise longues with legs of living wood, high wing-backed chairs of granite and quartz, doilied with distant snow, seedling stuffed ottomans fit for the feet of Gullivers, fans of delicate ferns, headboards of hemlock carved with eagles, all carpeted with barks and cones and plush mosses made for the touch, all dappled with serene summer light. The Inside Passage. Another from that same territory, green clouds. Green clouds lie along the surface of our coastal passage, clouds of conifers, of Sitka spruce and cedar, shore pine, hemlock and alder, that change shape by decades instead of days, by generations of snow and light that share the shelter of their deep-rooted solace with the water, the earth, the birds, and sometime passing men. That voyage that I took It was just three men, the captain and a very dear friend of mine at the time, and myself, out in the wilderness, and that was our floating cabin, the Sue Ann, a 42-foot halibut fishing boat, given mostly over to fishing, although we weren't. So we had a small cabin, and we floated about through amazing places. So from all the way north, we go pretty far south down to South Carolina, to Kiowa Island near Charleston, back to May of 97 in time. Kiowa. Sunset pools pink and pale in the blue-tided marsh. A shooting star descends, a green luminous messenger passing through the darkening veil. And overhead a comet in cold and ancient plumage shakes its silvered tail across the southern sky. Kiowa. And from the south, we wing our way west, far west to Santa Fe. And if Sophie is listening, hello to Sophie, and a poem for her part of the world. Santa Fe, New Mexico, September 99. The rainbows come in assorted colors here, and the pots of gold included at sunset each day, filling the paintbrush, the yucca, and the cactus, gilding the sides of leaping trout and the broad backs of black bears, veining the ripe red mesas, and washing through the undulating oak-scrubbed hills. Santa Fe. Another from there, since we're out west together. Apodaca Hill. I follow the dancing ball moon over the rolling waves of red earth, listening to the chorus of crickets, coyotes, and stars, savoring as they sing the scents of pinon and cedar, of sweet juniper cracking in the fire where we sit together in big sky silence, sharing the company of clouds, long, luminous, and still, contemplating us, contemplating them. And we come all the way back and up New England way where I am, but above where I am, to Maine, to Nobleboro, Maine. And I know I have some listeners tonight in Nobleboro and Rockland and other parts of Maine. And the title of this poem is 5:32, which actually stands for 5:32 a.m. Before first light, before color pours into the landscape, into the ponds and autumn trees, the sky and farmers' fields, before the herons take to their fishing, before the kettle begins to whistle in the wayside tea room. 5:32. Another from Maine, farther back in time, called Schoodic. It's a wonderful point lighthouse setting. And it's divided into foreground, midground, background, backdrop, and sound. Sullivan, Maine. Foreground, smooth rocks, a caressing tide, a snow-breasted loon. Midground, a wide channel of feathered blue water. Background, a hopper lighthouse. Backdrop, a flat of pines, a bouldered jaw of ocean-bound land. Sound, the briny clang of an ancient bellboy. Schoodic. And then we go out into the ocean, and we go, since probably it'd be nice to warm ourselves up in a way and color ourselves up, we'll go to Bermuda together. I know that I have some lovely listeners from Bermuda who I've been the guest of more than a few times, very happily, and was last there as a contributor to the America's Cup yacht races. This is called In the Pink, Tucker's Point, Bermuda, March 2013. I walk with pink powdered feet along the edge of aster blue water, with a soul sandpiper as company. Move softly toward a weather-cut wall of black coral crowned with plumes of sea pines. Take in the bluffs of sun-soaked clouds, the wind-laced ocean, the finity and infinity of the moment. In the pink. You know, there's another one I'm quite taken, as I'm sure many of us are, but as a poet, quite deeply a poet of nature and plein air with color and things painterly, and the colors there can be so remarkable that one day I was there back in 2017, July. This poem came to me, and it's called Saturated. And it starts with a quote by Paul Gauguin, who said, "How do you see these trees? They are yellow, so put in yellow. This shadow, rather blue, paint it with pure ultramarine. These red leaves, put in vermilion." So here's the poem, Saturated. Fauvist, the colors, the couleurs-ness, the saturated abstractions, expressions of the walls, the water, the stalks, fronds, flowers, the high noon, late day shadows, everywhere shades of Matisse, brushes of Derain, Gauguin, Vlaminck, rushes of sun, wildly fresh images, wet and drying canvases. Saturated. And then some of you who've been to Bermuda know that the drink of Bermuda, the official drink, is the dark and stormy, which is quite wonderful rum and ginger beer, black rum. And this poem is called It Was a Dark and Stormy Night. Rain-soaked, rum-soaked, ginger-beard, wool-sweatered, knee-socked, 895 miles out to sea, drinking in the weather. And if we sort of turn maybe, I think, hard right and go across the border, we make our way together down tonight to Mexico. This was from the Yucatan, one winter years back, where I used to spend a lot of time on a small point of coast, no town, tiny hotel. Went there for many years, usually the same room by the sea. Very happy, very simple. And this poem is called Todo Bien, all is well, todo bien. Today you take a siesta in the shade, surrounded by a sun-glazed sea. Your thoughts drift on the endless waves, on the passing clouds. Like shells, your ears catch the music of the surf and the palms rustling like loose pages in the wind. You've forgotten the date and indefinitely the hour. Todo bien. Poem from Tulum beach town. Casa Laura, Laura's house. We float above a sea of almond trees, whose broad leaves burn ember red. Above a sea of endless wind and turquoise water shimmering with fish and sun. Above reefs and ancient civilizations ground to white powder for our descending feet. Above the floor of the first morning light. Above the jungle's roots, the jaguar's paws, and the other life we have for a winter's time left behind. Casa Laura. hecho con leche, made with milk. The clouds, the inside of coconuts, the bodies before browning, the smiles of the señoritas. And then we cross the ocean now to Holland, to the Netherlands. We had a wonderful adventures. Had an extended family for a long time. Would come back and forth and visit each other, and I certainly miss there and them. And I'm really grateful for all the gifts of the times we had and the memories and the places I got to experience that are very deeply imprinted in my heart and spirit. And this is one moment that always takes me back. And it was interesting going through all poems to choose for this evening to curate for us. Some I had forgotten about for a while. So I was traveling a lot before we even got here tonight, back in time and memory and place. This is Dit Zakteland, this gentle land. Cloth white cows float by, reflected in the moss-cool water that streams through this soft land, where centuries pass on summer afternoons. Dit Zakteland. Title of the next piece from also the Netherlands. Noord, Zuid, Oost, and West. To the north, Norwegians and their cloudberries. To the south, Belgians and their waffles. To the east, Britons and their trifles. And to the west, Germans and their strudels. All nibbling round the edges of these sweet nether lands. And speaking of Germany there, we nudge over a bit, and I want to read a poem for all of us this evening, especially to honor one of the most beautiful men it was my honor and joy to know, who passed away not too long ago, and I'm very sad about that. And I had a marvelous time knowing him, and I was at his wedding, and in Germany, and outside of Berlin, the wedding, but stayed in Berlin. And I love writing what I call sort of mise en scène. We have another one tonight from France, mise en scène poems that sort of give you a sense of place and moment. And this was in their beautiful, eccentric, very idiosyncratic to them home, which was marvelous and magical. And I felt so much good energy there. And this is a poem for Rolf and Gabriela. And it's called Love is Blooming. Liebe blüht. Love is blooming. And life at Nummer 1 Ritterstrasse, in a sun-kissed corner of Berlin, where antique pink roses bloom in the bath, parrot tulips perch and blush on the kitchen table beside a large bowl of fruit, as party-colored flocks of butterflies flutter freely over the walls. Here, a goddess octopus undulates bluely and greenly in the corner where you pass for coffee or muesli, cheese or Riesling. A stately old radiator, tall and cream-complexioned, contains a filigreed cabinet with double doors of moss green that awaits muffins or mittens for warming. A charming Begründerzeit touch. Out extra-wide French doors, unlit lanterns dream of summer nights. A riot of flowering vines awaits official spring. Clay pots, also patient, begin to conjure greenery, and a wicker canopy tilts in a jaunty gentleman way above signs that point to the beach. But no diving, bitte, from the deck into the blue pool below. In the low-slung living room, of pillowy sofas and plump chairs and old-world yellows, browns, stand still. 2 cows have slipped out of their skins and disappeared, au nature, perhaps east to Ludorf, Müritz, and even greener pastures. While above on the upper deck, under full sails and brass-buttoned sailors, you discover a portholed lounge, a well-dressed passage where you can also pedal, a sunken bedchamber for sleeping beauties, 2 to be exact, and of all things, a trumpetarium gleaming with rows of old horns, polished and tarnished, a golden megaphone Rudy Valley could love, a German derby held out blackly and whitely, politely, from no hand, all silently resonating the songs, singers, Berlin dances, dancers they shared delight, Lieblichkeit with, decades of nights and nightclubs ago. Love is blooming. And then we keep moving across Europe a little bit to Italy and Tuscany and the Chianti Hills. And this poem, Lampo, lightning. Lightning flashes in from the 19th century to illuminate the silver leaves of gnarled and fruiting olive trees, the black moon eyes of wild hares and tusks of bristled boars suspended in the damp wind-shaken groves as I drift toward sleep, lulled by the in and outwashing spouts of rain and wind, and float away on the waves and swells of the deep Tuscan hills. Lampo. I know our time is coming, so we may not get through all of our pieces. We're close, though. We're close. And if we drop 1 or 2 out, we'll maybe pick them up another time. But I thought you'd enjoy traveling to Rome for a moment together in a whimsical, maybe way. This is a poem for the Eternal City, Anguilla, Ile. The Tiber squirms down the streetwise map of Rome, an indigo eel bisecting the superannuated city and its layers of history, brushes against the tentacles of the Piazza Grazzini, snakes under the Pope's nose, bifurcates briefly around Tiberina Island and white bedfuls of stagily ailing Romans, bends slowly and bluely around the Palatine and Aventine hills and the ringless Circus Maximus, before it disappears a half inch past the silent Via Stradivari. Anguilla. I spent various times in Venice, in Venezia, and I was struck each time by the small shrines that are at almost every turn on the most unexpected places. And that led to this poem back in September of 2007 called Hail Marys. Hail Marys, full of grace, in glass boxes round every corner, and blessed art thou among Italian women and men who set flowers at your small and saintly feet that stand ascended above foot-worn streets. Holy Marys, mothers now, goddesses, prayed to by sinners, suspended too in a state of faith, now until the holy and unholy hours of their deaths. Amen. Hail Marys. We'll dip into France for a moment, and then we'll come to a close for tonight. France, and then Greece, and then we will end. So I mentioned mise en scènes, and this poem was written back in the south of France for some wonderful, wonderful friends of the day and for many years in Antibes. It's the mise en scène at La Bérengère, Autumn. And this was at their wonderful home and garden for Raymond and Michel Allara. Several pommes de Savoie sitting matissely in the bowl, Le soleil du sud warming the garden, painted Provençal pots, urns of boxwood, camellia, and geranium, orange trees thick with fruit, the broad green gate you leave and return through, the slight tick of different clocks, the scent of vervin rising from the tisane, the scenes of French masters mirrored by Tante André, the plates of fine fromage chosen with taste, le comte, reblochon, chèvre, the pied d'anglois we laugh about, la musique du monde that floats round the room, Zarzuela, Mozart, René, Fats Waller, your dear faces and voices, all savored through a sweet autumn interlude in Antibes. I do miss those friends. And soon to the last, Greece. We were there last week a little bit, and we're here again in another way, in antiquity, having a picnic among the ruins. So join me for this picnic for a moment. On the island of Kea in the Cyclades in the Aegean. Dark green sunglasses, a bleach white kerchief to shield the neck from high burning sun, butterflies, wild sage to mark and scent the way we descend down a steep, rough path to the re-rising ruins of Carthea, for a picnic, swim, and mouthfuls of retsina below the pillars that templed Apollo and Athena eons ago. Picnic among the ruins. And then we've sort of been on Earth doing things together tonight, but I thought we might just take off for the moon for a moment, have one last poem, and then we'll end for the evening until next week. And this poem is, There's a Garden Behind the Moon. Actually, this is on my website, pleinairpoetry.com, recorded also and written. If you'd like to visit that there. There's a garden behind the moon, lucent, silent, ethereally fragrant, afloat in an untarnished sea of tranquility, aglow with large beds of lunar flowers whose petals shine and orbit like planets around enchantingly astral pistils and stamens. A garden that grows in starlight. A jardin illuminé you enter through the swinging gate of your night or daydreams, where you may idle and muse, meditate, and gaze back now and then at the blue-green earth you traveled from, imagined, and back in time as exotically and spaciously bloomed from. There's a garden behind the moon. There is, if we look, find many other things. And our last poem for tonight, and then a farewell. When we think of all this voyaging we have done in our lives, want to do, literally, I think of myself and my life at home as wherever I am at the moment. And I had this feeling very strongly coming back actually from a trip to Greece back in 2012, flying across the Atlantic from there, about what home actually meant. And this is home. It's a bungalow on a blue Canadian bay. It's a green shuttered room on an island in the Aegean. It's not the once home house of wood and brick I fly 5,000 miles back to. It's this body of blood and bone, energy and memory, essence and awareness. It's this self I make thousands of feelings, thousands of healings into. My walls and windows, porch and kitchen, bedroom, living room, wine cellar, roof, garden, study, bath. The sanctuary that surrounds me wherever I go, wherever I am. Thank you for listening tonight. There are replays of each broadcast on YouTube to share or hear again as you like. I hope you'll lean in again next time. Until then, good days ahead and good spirits.